Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. Boy, I'm telling you, it's coming fast and furious. There's so many stories out there, it's crazy. Today, we may be getting a 16-team playoff. The momentum is building. Also, Jordan Hudson appears to have been banned from North Carolina's practice facilities, but there could be a little turnaround on that. We'll talk about that. I mean, it's something every 12 hours. You got the NICO IAMALEAVA thing. You got the House versus NCAA. You got a lawsuit about a fifth year for players. 14-team playoff, 16-team playoff, and then Jordan Hudson dives in. And that's been the biggest story all over the country, is this 24-year-old with Bill Belichick, who's 72, which more power to the guy. I'm not getting on him about it. It's been a mess. And we'll get right into that. And this has been all over the news today. Jordan Hudson reportedly banned from the UNC football program's facilities. And it talks about how this thing has turned into a circus, an absolute media circus. Said the focus should be on football and putting together the best possible roster for 25, but instead it's all about Bill and Jordan. It says now the circus has taken another shocking turn. North Carolina reportedly banning Hudson. And this came out on X.
A couple of breaking news updates since what has happened publicly since we last gathered. Number one, okay? Two sources at the University of North Carolina tell me that there has been a decision, it was made last week, by the higher-ups inside the athletic department that had hired Bill Belichick to be the highest-paid public employee, not just coach, in the state of North Carolina at $10 million a year. And that decision was that Jordan Hudson is no longer allowed in the football building.
Okay.
She is not allowed on the football field. Quote, don't think you'll be hearing much from Jordan moving forward.
Wow.
Dang, not in the
flippant.
building?
That's a little flippant. I feel like that is what is done with a distraction, and a team is within its rights to do that when it comes to external distractions.
Now, do we think, maybe we know, I don't know if we know, do we think this is like the athletic director at UNC being like, this is a problem? Or do you think it's Bill going to the athletic director and being like, I would really love it if you said this was a problem?
They said you can't come.
Yeah, I
would love to have you there.
Oh my God,
you're my cheerleader.
Who's got tarier heels than you?
You're my cheerleader.
You gotta be there, babe. But freaking
but they
Donnie's
are saying,
on my back.
Bubba Cunningham.
New
Is that his name? Bubba Cunningham?
Bubba's.
Yeah, they want to blame, I think they're saying Bill Belichick wants to blame Bubba. And Bubba's already been in hot water for various other things. But I don't think you need to blame Bubba on this one. This is a Bill Belichick thing. And I was talking to my brothers today. We went down to Calhoun's and had lunch. Tony Basilio did his show down there, and we like to go down there on Fridays whenever they have the home baseball games. And we were discussing the Bill Belichick thing. And Junebug, who you know, and you've seen on the show, and he said, you know, the thing about a 72-year-old and a 24-year-old, he said, a guy can get pretty stupid at that age. Kind of reminds me of this.
Anyways, you put a spin on it by holding it here, and then you can actually hold it like this. Now,
Yeah, I think I remember that South Park episode. I think that's kind of how it is. So I think Bill has just kind of lost it. He really doesn't know what's going on anymore, and he's dealing with something that's out of his control. Now, everything has turned in a matter of a few hours, because once word got out that, hey, you know, Jordan Hudson's been banned, I think Bill got a lot of pressure put on him because this just came out. Yeah, UNC says Bill Belichick's girlfriend still welcome at the school. So they actually issued a statement Friday saying Bill Belichick's girlfriend is a welcome guest at the football facilities after reports claimed she had been banned. It says while Jordan's not an employee of the University of Carolina Athletics, she's welcome at the facilities. And what I just showed you, the Pablo Torre, who had the podcast, he issued a statement of his own, standing by his reporting, saying the University of North Carolina can choose to describe or change its position on Hudson's involvement however it wishes. Following the publication of our episode, we requested comment and filed dozens of FOIA requests that were not satisfied. And we stand by the specific reporting in our episode, which came from the highest levels of the football program. Yep, folks, here's what it boils down to. I think independent George has run into relationship George, and worlds are colliding.
If relationship George walks through this door, he will kill independent George.
Yeah, relationship Bill and independent Bill aren't getting along. And this all started from that CBS Sunday morning show where she chimed in and purportedly stormed out of the interview and tried to control it. And that didn't go over so well.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the philosophy.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
Sorry, I just thought it'd be nice if people knew we were a couple.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on.
And she claimed that they had an understanding that they wouldn't talk about anything personal. CBS came out and said, absolutely, that's not the case. We told them we were going to talk about whatever, which is pretty typical of a journalist. So, look, this Jordan Hudson thing beats anything I've ever seen. I mean, it is everywhere. And it's not just sports programs. I've seen it on The View. On all the YouTubers that usually cover politics or cover news or whatever, they're all talking about Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick. It's kind of taken over the world. But anyway, it definitely feels like worlds are colliding for Bill Belichick. Independent Bill has no chance. Relationship Bill will kill Independent Bill. Anyway, let's get on to something a little more serious. The 16-team playoff is building steam. And this came out by Ross Dellinger. Talks about SEC and Big Ten are building momentum to further expand the college football playoff to either 14 or 16, but there's been a lot of talk about the 16. Now, if you go with 14, we talked about that the other day. It's the 4-4-2-2-1-1. And what you do there is you've got 4 for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten, 2 for the ACC, and 2 for the Big 12. And then you do 1 for the group of 5, which is now group of 6, and then 1 for basically Notre Dame. Or I guess it would be at large. And what you do there is you have the SEC champion and the Big Ten champion, they get a bye. So they moved up a week. And then the 12 play down to 6, and then 6 and 2, you've got 8, 4, 2, and 1. So it's not a huge change, and it wouldn't change how much money you get from the college football playoff because it doesn't add enough games. If you go to 16-team playoff, you get more money from the college football playoff, which is what every team wants, and it allows more teams to get in. And it also has a huge twist in it that could make things very interesting. And I'll tell you about that here in a second. And Ross Dellinger went into here, and it kind of showed what would happen if you went with 16. What you'd average is about 5 teams would get in for the SEC, 5 for the Big Ten, then 2.4, 2.1. This is just based on history, and then group of 5 and Notre Dame. So as you can see, a lot of teams would get in with 16. With 14, it's a little bit less. Now, the big twist, if they go with 16, would be you'd have no byes. So your top 8 would play your bottom 8. The top 8 would get home field advantage. But here is the twist, and it's a big one. They're talking about having play-in games. So, for example, when you have the SEC championship weekend where 1 plays 2, that game's not really that important anymore, especially if you don't get a bye for it. So if you go to 16, that game's just kind of a just-to-watch game, and it wouldn't affect things very much. But what they're talking about doing is having that game, but also having a 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. And they would do the same thing in the Big Ten. So, for example, this year, you would have had Tennessee, who finished 3rd, would have played South Carolina, who finished 6th, and they would have played a game on the SEC weekend, and whoever wins that game goes to the playoff. And then the 4th team, which would have been Alabama, they would have played Ole Miss, which would have been the 5th team. The winner of that game goes to the playoff along with the 1st and 2nd team in the SEC, allowing 4 spots. And what you'd have there is 4-4. You'd have your 2 in the Big 12 still, 2 in the ACC, and you'd have multiple at-large bids. You'd have the 1 group of 6, probably Notre Dame, and then you'd have some additional at-large bids all the way up to 16 teams, which again would allow a lot more teams into the playoff, or at least the opportunity. I think that's a great idea. Now, I understand that if you finish 3rd, you might not like it because you would have automatically gotten in. But here's the good thing about it. Not only do you get an extra game where you're playing, like, for example, last year would have been Tennessee versus South Carolina, which I think would have been a fantastic game. I'm not sure who'd have won that either because South Carolina was hot. But the beauty of that is, let's say you lose that game. Well, you still can go to a bowl game. So you still get an additional game out of that if you're a fan. And there's nothing wrong with a bowl game. They're still fun. But you also have the opportunity, if you finish 6th in the SEC, of playing yourself into the playoff. So that gives a lot more opportunities at the end of the year for teams to play their way into a national championship, which would be monstrous for any team. And it's going to happen. If you do that, some 6th place team in the SEC or Big Ten is going to win an Natty. It would only be a matter of time, which would be very exciting. And you'd have to go through a gauntlet to do that. You'd have to win, 5 games in a row, I believe. You'd have to get 1, 2, 3. Yeah, right at that, which would be amazing. Now, here's why I think 16 is going to happen. First of all, if you do the play-in games, that gets the money to the SEC and Big Ten, even more money for that weekend. And that's the thing they were concerned about, is when you have the SEC championship game, that's a big money thing. And they're worried that if you don't get a bye for that, who's going to watch because there's no reason. Well, if you've got 2 play-in games on that weekend, it's huge. But here's the other thing that it does. Money.
Comes in pretty handy down here, bub.
Oh,
We all know that this has become about money. Whether you like it or not, I know many of you don't, this is what the college football playoff money is per conference. So, for example, the SEC gets $23 million, Big Ten 21, and that's because there are more teams in the Big Ten, and ACC and Big 12. If you go to 16 teams, you're going to have a lot more ball games because right now you've got those 4 byes, so there's no games for that. You're adding a bunch of games. So, more TV money, more TV rights money, all the conferences will add to their coffers. And they all need more money because of the NCAA versus House settlement, plus NIL and all of that. So that $23 million that we were just talking about, that'd probably go to $26 million and that maybe 27. That's a big difference. There are 2 other reasons. The SEC weekend becomes a much bigger weekend because now you got 3 ball games instead of 1. That's a lot more TV rights money. So the SEC and Big Ten would get a lot more money. You also could do that with the other conferences. You could take the first place winner of the ACC, let 2 versus 3 play for a play-in, which would also get you more money. But what this really does, if you go to 16 teams and you guarantee the SEC 4 and you guarantee the Big Ten 4, plus the at-large bids, it does something else that's very important. It would allow the SEC to go to 9 games because they know they're going to get 4 spots plus at large. Now they're not worried about having teams left out if they beat each other up during the season. So what that would do is get another probably $100 million for the SEC, which would help offset how far behind they are with the Big Ten because they're about $10 million a year behind with the Big Ten. Well, that would cut that by about $6 million. So they would like that. The other thing that it does, it would allow the SEC and Big Ten to play each other, which would be another TV rights big money deal. And look, I know I'm talking a lot about money, but that's what's stirring the drink. And all of those things mean more TV money. And if you don't like hearing that, I get it. I really, really do. But it just boils down to it is what it is. I mean, Texas is spending $40 million this year on NIL and revenue sharing. Used to be 0. And every school is raising ticket prices and trying to sell more tickets, trying to get more donors. So any money you can get from TV rights, that takes pressure off the donors. That takes pressure off the ticket sales, which is they got to get it somewhere. It's easier to get it from TV rights than anywhere else. So that's one good way to look at it. And by the way, I mentioned I was down at Calhoun's today, the Tony Basilio show. They do that before the big baseball weekend whenever we're at home. And ran into some fans down there, had some pictures made. And as I was saying, Junebug and Chilmonte were down there. And this is Josiah and his family, and his mom was down there too. She was really nice. And they all liked the show and watch it. And so we all had a picture together and had a good time. So anyway, just thought I'd show that to you. That was fun. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit this little button right here. It won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video, YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.
Congratulations, you played yourself.